through CPSE. My family, I'm married. My wife and I are empty nesters. We have a 22-year-old son who just graduated from the University of Idaho. He's a resident firefighter there in Moscow. And then we have twins that just graduated from high school and starting their college career. So we're empty nesters and we're excited about the new opportunity. I don't know if it's appropriate now or later. I know we got a lot of time. I do think it's important at some time to discuss my departure in Boise. I want to discuss that and enter it head on. So if it doesn't come up in questions, I'll address it in the end. We're excited about this for multiple reasons. We're excited about taking our experience that we have, 30 years as a firefighter and 12 years as a fire chief, and bringing it to Gig Harbor and using what I've learned as a leader and as a fire chief. I'm also a leadership consultant with Patrick Lencioni. I don't know if you've ever read Patrick Lencioni's books, but I'm what's called a Kappa Pro leadership consultant, and I help leaders and teams create a healthy environment. And I just helped the Nampa Fire Command staff for a couple days. That's kind of an overview of who I am and what I've done and my education and my family. And I just want to thank you again for this opportunity to be here. It's an honor.
Well, thank you, Mr. Doan. And I guess on behalf of the commissioners, since you opened the door and kind of left something hanging, let's go ahead and talk about your departure from the Boise Fire Department.
Great, thank you. Thanks for that. You know, it's pretty simple. I know there was a news story today in the paper in both Gig Harbor and in Boise about it. It's pretty simple, but people want to make more of it than there is. I worked in a strong mayor form of government. I worked for Dave Beater, who appointed me fire chief. He lost his election. He served as mayor for 16 years. He lost his election, and the new incoming mayor met with me. I assumed that it may happen as transitions happen with strong mayors forms of government. I met with her. She said, these are exact words, "You have a relationship with the previous mayor, and I'd like you to move on." So I said, okay. We had scheduled the time to get back together to work on it when I came in. She put me on administrative leave and gave me 2 hours to clean out my office. And that's literally all that happened. It was political, strong mayor form of government. And I have nothing bad to say. I did nothing wrong. I didn't do anything illegal or immoral or unethical. It was a change in leadership and a change with the department heads. And that a lot of times in the stories, it will be, there's got to be more behind this. There's got to be more behind it. And there simply isn't. That is the end of the story. That's what happened. It was hard on me. This has been a hard year for me to leave my 30-year career with only 2 hours notice. But you know, when we go through difficult things, when we go through difficult situations, I think that it's not the difficult thing that defines us. It's how we react. Our character comes through when difficult things happen. And this has been a difficult year for me, and this was a difficult thing that happened. But I think how I've handled it, how I've been upfront, how I have, you know, I will open up my personnel file. There's just nothing to hide. I have nothing but great things to say about my city and my department, and there's nothing else behind the story. So I just wanted to address that and thank you for it, and thank you for the opportunity to address it. And I'll answer any questions and go in depth if anybody wants more.
Yeah, thank you. Are there any follow-up questions from the panel on that particular topic before we move into the structured questions? Okay, seeing none, we'll move right ahead. And I'll divide these questions up. The first question comes from our commissioners. It's actually 3 parts, but I'll break it up to make it easier for you to address individually. The first 2 components, what would you expect from the board to help you be successful in this position? And what would your ideal working relationship be like with the board?
Um, my expectations would be transparency with both of us. It's all about relationships that I would get expectations. I understand the board fire chief relationship. I'm actually on the Boise School Board. So we have about 4,000 employees and a school superintendent. So I kind of sit in your chair with the school district, and I know how that feels sometimes, right? You've put together, a superintendent or a fire chief or a CEO to run the organization, and you want them to do that, and you want to free them up. But sometimes you have constituents asking you questions, or teachers or firefighters, and trying to weigh that. And I just want you to know that I've sat in your seat, and I do sit in your seat through the school district, and I understand that board CEO relationship from your seat. From my seat as fire chief, if I get to be there, my expectations is open, honest communications. There will be no secrets either way. My previous boss had that rule of me, and I always liked it. He just said, no surprises. Sorry, too. No surprises. I don't want to be surprised by anything. And so that's my job, to figure that out with each commissioner about what the thing that they're important that is important to them. And that's what I would want both ways, that there's no meetings after the meetings, that we're open, honest, transparent, and we work on that relationship, and we continue to have the relationship. I would know as fire chief who I work for, that I work for the 5 commissioners, and that would be my role. It's that relationship of the 5 commissioners of my boss, but I'm the leader of the department. So that's what I would expect. And the ideal relationship is open, honest communication, no surprises, that we're transparent. We don't have meetings after the meetings. We put it out on the table. And but I think clear expectations is also very important. What do you want from the fire chief? And that, when we get into questions, that will be one of my questions too, is what does success look like? How will it be evaluated? How will it be measured? What are the key performance indicators for the fire chief? Things like that. So those are questions that I would want to know. I think it's always important in that supervisor relationship to know the expectations of your job. So I would be asking those questions, whether at the end of this interview or sometime in the future. I would want to know that, and it's important to have those clear expectations.
What process would you use to present a new item or issue to the board?
Oh, a process. So I think it's important when we talk about the relationships. I don't know if many of you have done much work in like a Myers-Briggs or a DISC assessment or strength finders, or I've done all of those, and one of the things that I always used with my team was a DISC assessment, and I'm an I in a DISC assessment. I'm an ENFP in the Myers-Briggs, and I've worked a lot in that DISC assessment. And after I spend a little bit of time, I can usually tell what people are, if they're a D, an I, an S, or a C, and that helps with how we communicate. Like I said, I'm an I, and when an I talks to a C or a D, you communicate differently. And I've learned about that, and I use it with my team. So the process I would use is first spending, like I said in the previous answer, a lot of time in relationships, expectations, and transparency. Process I would use is, I know each one of you are wired different. Each one of you have things that are important to you, and I would make sure, and it's my job to learn your style. It's my job to learn your communication style and what's important to you. So the process I would use is, first, I think everything needs to be done with statistics and data. For too long, fire departments and excuse me, chief, but police departments, sometimes we just say, we need it because we're public safety. People are going to die. And, that's not what we want as commissioners and as communities. We need to have statistics and data. And so one of the things that I would do with our team is you have to find this fine balance of, I can't always bring a project that is fully baked with a bow on top of it done and present it to the commissioners. Sometimes you want to bring it early on. This is an idea we have, and get some reaction. So it's a both and. Coming to the commissioners with, hey, here's an idea we have. Here's something that we want to work on. Here's something that, and we need to get feedback. What's some feedback from the commissioners on a direction, or should we go that way? And then when it is time to actually present it, we need to have the facts and the data and the finances ready to go. We can't just come to the commissioners and say, we want this cuz, that puts the burden in your seat to ask the questions of, well, how much does it cost? Well, how long does it take? Well, what about the training? I need to come with those answers already to the commissioners. After I've asked, is this the right direction? Is this the way you want to go? Then when we come back with a project, it's asked all those right questions. We've done it with data. We've done it with statistics. And it's not just with emotion. It's not putting you in a position because we want it, and that's the process I would use. First, checking in, this is the direction we want to go. Second, once you put some sideboards on it, we come with a good, solid plan that hits all of the statistics and the data and the finances, and hopefully answers all those questions.
Commissioner Studich, was that a question, or are you just repositioning your camera there? A follow-up question, or?
No, I'm good. Just repositioning.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Mr. Doan, question number 2 of 18. These questions come from our labor group. Do you believe that succession planning and professional mentorship have a place in the fire service? And what have you done to encourage succession planning and mentorship?
Oh, absolutely. Succession plan is important. When I first became Boise Fire Chief, we had a dysfunctional command staff, for lack of a better word. I remember the fire marshal walking into the operations chief's office and saying, I haven't been in here in 2 years. They were siloed. There was no succession planning. There was no teamwork. There was no team building. And that was one of the first things that I worked on changing. First, creating a great team that's ready to move forward and take the next job. And one of the things that I was most proud of, I remember meeting with the HR director in my final few years, and I said, if I were to walk out today, they would say, Dennis, who, really quickly, because I have 4 deputy chiefs that are incredible. They know what they're doing. I'm not a micromanager. They run this department. They're smart. Any one of the 4 could step into the fire chief job and continue, and we wouldn't even know who Dennis was. I was pretty proud of that. And I think that not only do I have to do that with the command staff, we have to continue to do it on down the line. I think succession and mentorship is very important. When it comes to mentorship, I've always had a leadership mentor my entire time as fire chief. I had 3 different ones over the years. I always want somebody helping me and mentoring me outside the fire department. And then I've been a mentor quite a bit. For 12 years, I was a Boise Young Professional Leadership Mentor, where they would come to my office and have lunch with me every other week. I was also a mentor for others. So succession planning is very important. We need to work on leadership. I focused a lot on the command staff, but we need to focus on it on other leadership positions. Too many times in the fire service, we hand somebody a red helmet and a couple bugles and say, you're now a leader. We need to start from day one. One of the things that we implemented was the NWCG L180, L280, L380, L381. I don't know if you guys have heard of that, but it's a leadership. It started with NWCG, the National Wildland Fire, but it's moved into the structure firefighting and EMS field. And we start at recruit class with L180, and that's a leadership class. And we need to start right then, the day they get hired. We hire a lot of leaders that come from other organizations, and to just wait until they become a company officer, a lieutenant, and hand them a helmet and then start focusing on leadership is the wrong time to do it. We need to start in recruit academy, and as they work up the ranks, continue to focus on leaders, because a lot of times we have informal leaders that have only been on a year or two. So sorry, I get a lot of things going. Succession, absolutely, for command staff and on down. Mentorship is very important for me to have a mentor, and to mentor others. And then we need to focus on leadership from the day you start, and start on leadership classes in Recruit Academy.
Okay, thank you. Question number 3 comes from a community member. As fire chief, how would you propose that the department address and close the gaps on equity and diversity in the hiring process at this department?
Well, I think it's first is important to talk about the difference between diversity and inclusion, right? And I think as a fire service, we're doing better in hiring diverse candidates, and we need to continue to focus on that. Diversity is it's the range of human differences that we all have, whether it's race, ethnicity, gender identity, and sexual orientation, age, social class, physical ability, and physical attributes, religious and ethical systems, national origin, political, where inclusion is a little bit different. Diversity is bringing those diverse human differences that we have. Inclusion is having involvement, it's having empowerment, where the worth of all people are recognized. An inclusive fire department promotes and sustains a sense of belonging, no matter who you are, from those diverse groups, and it values and practices and respects all talents and all beliefs and all backgrounds. So we got to have a diverse department, but we also have to have an inclusive department that recognizes that and creates an atmosphere that's inclusive. I think diversity enriches our work environment. We make better decisions when we're more diverse. And so now that we know the difference between diversity and inclusion, which are two very important things, and we need to continue to be a diverse department, here's some of the things that we did, and most fire departments, like I said, is doing a better job of getting a diverse fire department. Now we need to focus more on inclusion. So some things that we did was partner with Boise State University. With the athletics department. We partnered with Girl Scouts, and we put on a Fire Ops 101 with Girl Scouts. But really where we start getting the traction is when you get 125 Gig Harbor firefighters to realize that they are all recruiters, right? The fire chief or HR can only do so much. We can put on programs, but when we noticed a big difference in recruitment when we got 300 Boise firefighters working out in gyms, telling their friends, telling their family, hey, you ought to take the test. Boy, we started having we had to get that buy-in first, that it was the right thing to do and that we needed some help. And once we did that, a lot of our fruit came from those 300 firefighters telling others. If you think about it, I mean, that's how most of us became firefighters, is somebody told us, our friend, a family, right? And we need to do a better job. So I think diversity is very important. We need to focus on inclusion in our department. I think there's also a difference between equitable and equality. So a lot of times we just say things need to be equal. And let me give you an example. That equal isn't always best, that we need to be equitable. So take, for instance, visualize a taller person with a ladder that can reach some fruit, right? We have a shorter person with a shorter ladder that can't quite reach the fruit, and an even shorter person with a shorter ladder that can't reach it. If we have equality, we add a foot to everybody's ladder. Now the tall person can still reach the fruit. The medium person can reach it, but the short person can't. We got to look at where people start in their walk or wherever they are, and we need to be equitable for some. And sometimes some people need a little bit more of a helping hand, and we need to recognize that. Maybe we need to help a group that sometimes we'll put together that you have to be an EMT to be a firefighter. Well, what kind of barrier do we have in becoming an EMT? You have to be able to get off work for weeks and weeks and take the class. You have to be able to afford it. And is there ways that we can break down some of those barriers for those that need it? Sometimes it's not equality, it's being equitable. Another thing we need to really focus on is how we deliver our service. We need to look at the medicine that we're providing. I know I'm running out of time, so I'll be real quick on this one, but we need to look at how we're delivering our medicine. Because when we started looking at that, we found out that sometimes their socioeconomic or the color of their skin depended on what medicine they got and how much and if they got it. And you know, I don't think our firefighters are racist in any way. I think it was an internal bias that they had and how we were delivering that service. And we need to spend a lot of time, and especially in EMS, how are we delivering our service to our customers? And is there any type of disparate impact to different diverse people?
Okay, thank you. Moving to question number 4, which is a 3-part question. I'll ask you the first 2 parts initially. What experience have you had working with volunteer firefighters, and what differences do you see between career and volunteer firefighters?
Well, I started my career as a volunteer firefighter. And so I have experience of being one, of being in those shoes, of remembering what it was like. Also, Boise Fire is a city fire department, but we contracted with 3 different fire districts and another city. And when we started those programs, we had volunteers in those programs. So I have experience of being one and then having volunteers within our agency. What differences do I see? You know, we have, and we continue to, and we've raised the bar over the years that a volunteer needs to have a high standard, right? We don't want somebody to get hurt or killed or injured, and they need to meet those standards, which has become tough. This is something that is an issue around the nation right now. As commissioners and as chiefs, we don't want somebody that isn't prepared, doesn't have the minimum training, doesn't have the minimum standards. Well, sometimes that's hard to do. It's hard to do when you have a family and you have a job, you have a career to meet those obligations. And it's been, it's very difficult. So I would say the difference, you know, fire burns just as hot for a paid professional firefighter as it does for a volunteer firefighter. It doesn't discriminate whether you get a paycheck or whether you're paid on call or whether you're a resident or whether you're a volunteer. It burns exactly the same, and it's just as hot. And we need to make sure that we have that experience and training for both our residents or our volunteers or our paid on call firefighters as we do for our professionals. So there's not a difference in the training. We need to have the exact same training. The only difference that I can think of is that you know, a professional firefighter, it's their career. It's where they get their paycheck each and every day, and they're available and required to be there, and a volunteer or a resident may not. So I have some experience in being a volunteer firefighter, running some volunteer programs. And then when it comes to the difference, you know, like I said, fire is just as hot, and we need to have the same standards, and we need to make sure people are trained and ready to go. We need to spend time with them to make sure that they don't get hurt or injured or killed. And so in some ways there's a difference in paid and professional, and some ways there's not. We need to have that same standard.
You mentioned the word programs. What programs would you implement to maximize volunteer involvement, response, and sustainability?
You know, I've spent a lot of time on this since I read the brochure. At first, you know, it said it's a combination department with 15 volunteers. Then through my interactions with the chief and other firefighters, I've been really trying to learn more about the combination department. I got out the strategic plan and read it to see, you know, what the plan is for volunteerism. And I Googled, you know, and spent time on the website looking for what's going on. What is the program like at this point? And I couldn't find anything on the website. There's only one line in this strategic plan about it. I went through the budget. There's one line of about $7,000 for volunteers. So I'll answer that question, but outsider looking in, it seems like there's not a big priority on this. And I asked the chief about that. I said, It seems weird that it's a combination department with volunteers and residents, but yet I can't find anything about it. I don't see anything. Where's the priority here? And he said that it had fallen away, but that he had assigned somebody, one of the chiefs, to start putting the plan together. So the thing that I would do first is what is the expectations of the commissioners? Let's have that discussion. How do we want to, what do we want? What problem are we trying to solve? What is the plan that the chief is putting together for the future? I think one of the things that we need to do to answer those questions is a standard of cover needs to be finished first, and a risk assessment. Because until you know what your response standards are, I did ask the chief, and he gave me the draft standard of cover. That needs to be done first. The standard of cover and risk assessment needs to get done so that you can look at the entire community and know what your level of service is. Then you can build a program of some kind, whether it's a resident program or a volunteer program, behind it to fix the problem that you have. You can't create a program until you know what the level of service, number one, that you have, and the level of service that you want to have. So the next thing that I would do after looking at the program, asking commissioners, union, community, through the standard of cover, it's a big deal on what's our level of service, what's the community think. We would need to do that. Look at the plan that's being worked on. The next thing that I would do in the interim as we start getting ready for what we want to do, what's the program look like, is I know there's Pulse Point in Gig Harbor, but there's something else called Verified Pulse Point. Now, and we started that in Boise. And so in Pulse Point, you only get notified if it's a public entity, right? At Home Depot, you get notified. But a verified Pulse Point is any Gig Harbor firefighter, any firefighter, police officer, anybody with medical training that's verified in the community can now get notified if it's in a private residence. And I think that's a good stopgap while we're building the program. A good quick thing is to get verified Pulse Point, because I've been told there's a lot of firefighters and police officers and paramedics and nurses living in the community. Imagine how those hundreds of people responding to their neighbors, right? They already have the training through their department. They're verified. We know that they have it, and they would be willing to go across the street if they knew there was a problem. And I really think, because EMS is probably the number one deal in these more rural places that need the volunteer or the resident program, verified Pulse Point. Then maybe we look at buying some defibrillators and some automatic defibrillators and some equipment for either our firefighters to take home, or maybe partnering with these other fire and EMS services. I think that could solve a big part of our program. And then I would partner with Bates College, with a union on some type of an intern program. I always think that's really important. We can evaluate people. I told you, my son is a resident firefighter in Moscow Fire Department. That's how he spent his 4 years. He lived in the firehouse. It helped him with housing, and then helped him with school, and then it helped the Moscow Fire Department with staffing. And he gets 4 years experience, his firefighter 1, his firefighter 2, his firefighter 3, he got his EMT. I really think, after we do the verified Pulse Point, a resident program, it would be the next step. Your question was more about what have I done? We had a community like that outside of Boise with our contracted agency that we implemented the verified Pulse Point, and we were working with the union to start the resident program. So I know I went over my time, so I'll just stop there.
The time management is yours, but we are on question 5 of 18. And this next question comes from our labor group. How should a fire chief communicate with the community at large, as well as local elected officials?
I'd say when it comes to communication, that is a big part of the fire chief's role. I mean, there's a lot of constituent groups. First, there's the community. There's the city of Gig Harbor. There's the county. There's chief, you working for the city. That partnership that we need with the police department, the labor. There's so many constituent groups, and that's the fire chief's job. And communication is the fire chief's job, and it's one of my strengths. Like I said, I was I'm on the school board, very active in the chamber, was on the American Red Cross board, Ridge to Rivers volunteer. I was a mentor for Boise Young Professionals. I was on the Medal of Honor committee. I'm in Rotary, started the Fallen Firefighter Memorial. I really helped a lot with Be the Match because I was a bone marrow donor for a little 1-year-old boy. I had 100 Men Who Care. I think that that's very important to be very community active as the fire chief. But this was more about the communication. I think it's one of my strengths. I'm a pretty good communicator and a relationship person. Like I said, I'm an ENFP. That's kind of who I am as a connector. I speak a lot. I speak around the nation on different issues in the fire service, and in Boise, I would speak at City Club, Rotary, Kiwanis, and lots of events. And that's one of the things that the fire chief needs to do. He's the chief relationship officer of the department, sometimes the face of the department. And working with elected leaders and community leaders is very important. And I think it's one of my strengths. So how would I do it? It would be part of those organizations. It would be available to speak at different organizations and just representing the commissioners and the district in the community is very important.
Okay, thank you. Question 6 comes from a community member. When you were selected for the role of fire chief, what will be your 30, 60, and 90-day plans be?
There's a strength and a weakness of hiring somebody outside, and that's what you're going to have to balance, right? Because when you're an internal candidate, you know the people, you have relationships, you know the culture, and you've been part of that association for so long, you know it all. The problem with being an internal candidate is you know the people, you have relationships, you know the culture. Sometimes that can be a little bit of a blinder. We're doing it because we've always done it, right? Sometimes an outside person can come in with a different point of view, bring some different experiences, can say, why are we doing it that way? I started down a track here. Chief, can you just, I know it was about
30, 60, and 90-day plan.
Yes. Yeah, sorry. So that leads me to my 30, 60, and 90-day plan. It's about relationships. I hate to keep going back to that, but really that's what it is. And that's what it's about. In the 30, 60, 90 days, it would be first, spend a lot of time listening and being available and listening. One of the things that I did for 12 years as fire chief was every week, I would schedule half a day to go ride with a fire engine. I would take my turnouts, I'd go in and I would ride along and I'd go on the calls. I'd sit around the kitchen table every single week. I would schedule it. It would be on my schedule and on their calendar for 2 reasons. Number one, I loved it. It was fun. It was fun reconnecting. It was fun to be around the kitchen table to go directly to the firefighters and say, what's going on? What are you seeing? What's the trouble you're having? Why are you frustrated? Or what's good's going on? Tell me good stories too. And I'd hear great stories. So in my 30, 60, 90-day plan, it would be about getting in the firehouse, riding along. It would be spending time with the commissioners, again, to learn their communication styles, learn what's important to each commissioner. It would be meeting with the mayor and asking to be part of the city, right? I know it's a fire district, but I want the city and chief, I would want to be your partner. And I would want the city to think of me as the city fire chief and as a customer of Gig Harbor Fire. So it would all, the first 30, 60, 90 days is all going to be about relationships. I'm a Rotarian. I would, become a Rotarian there. I'm in my church. I'd find a church. I would, so it's about relationships, getting to know the expectations, listening a lot, finding out what the culture's like, finding out expectations from the commissioners on what you want, what's their 30, 60, 90-day plan. I don't want to come in and just say, this is my plan. I need to know what my boss wants me to do too. And it would be spending time with the labor group, making sure that they have a seat at the table, making sure that their voice is heard, and creating those relationships. Because you know what? Nobody is ever going to remember what we said. We're going to remember how we made them feel. And when it comes down to labor and our relationship, there's going to be an issue, and then there's going to be another issue, and there may be another issue. And we need to always remember that our relationship is more important than the issue. We'll get over this issue and we'll get to something else. Our relationship is very important. So 30, 60, 90 days, all about listening, all about relationships. It's about learning the culture. It's about creating those relationships and being part of organizations within the community, and getting to know the city and the other fire chiefs in the county too.
Okay, thank you. Question 7, you've actually touched on a little bit before, but it comes from our commissioners. Please describe your approach to recruitment, retention, and development of staff. What does diversity mean to you, and how does that factor in?
Recruitment, retention, and diversity. Yeah, we talked about some of the things we put into place for recruitment, retention.
And let me make sure you heard the question correctly. Describe your approach to recruitment, retention, and development of staff. What does diversity mean to you, and how does that factor in?
Great. Again, I think we talked about recruitment and retention. Let's focus a little bit on the development of the staff. I think that's one of the things that is a strength of mine. I told you I'm a Patrick Lencioni leadership consultant. I have my own consulting business that I help. I help leaders and I help teams create teams. And the first thing we need to do is the fire chief, or one of the most important things to do, is to focus on that team. Great people, great foundation, great leaders. It's building trust, because the trust is foundation of all leadership. And so to develop our staff, and with the commissioners, we would do the same thing, is to have a foundation of trust. And what I mean by that is a vulnerability-based type of trust, right? Where a deputy chief or somebody on the team can look at me and say, you know what? I don't think we're doing this right. I don't think we're headed in the right direction. For me to say I made a mistake. For vulnerability-based trust is saying, you do this better than I am. I need help with this. When you have a team and you create that development of your staff and your team and create good trust, then you have a healthy conflict. And conflict is kind of a weird word, but it's that weighing in and buying in. If you have trust with your command staff, if you have trust with your team, if we have trust as commissioners and fire chief, then we can have healthy conflict, meaning that we call each other out, or we say, hey, I don't know if we did that right. And when we do that, then we're going to commit. We're going to commit together. We're weighing in, we're buying in, we commit to the future. Then we start having accountability as a command staff, where one chief is looking at the other chief officer and saying, I know I'm ops chief and you're prevention, but I think we ought to do this differently. And when you have that trust and conflict and commitment and accountability, now you're going to have results. So I would pour into that development of the staff. I think it's a strength of mine. Like I said, I teach it, and would want to do the same thing, that 10 years down the road, when it is time for me to step out, there's somebody ready. We've developed them. We've developed a great team. And then I would ask them to continue to develop their team. I think diversity of staff, and we talked about it in the department, but diversity on my team, on the command staff team, is so important. And in my last role, I had 2 females and 2 male, or well, actually I had two deputy chiefs that were females and 2 that were males. And then I had a communication director that was a female. I think that diversity of the command staff and the team is so important. And we need to look for that, and we need to continue to focus on that. So recruitment and retention, not only in the department, but of command staff, creating a place that I want to create a place where our team is so good, others want, but they don't want to leave because they love it so much here. And, I don't want deputy chiefs that nobody else is recruiting for fire chief, right? I want deputy chiefs that others want to become their chief or their deputy chief, but I want them to love our team and our department and Gig Harbor so much that they don't want to leave. And a lot of times people look at the leader, and I think this goes from recruitment to retention to volunteers, all the things we've talked about. So the leadership's job, the role of a leader is not to come up with all the great ideas. If we're looking at just the fire chief, that one person to come up with all the great ideas and all the vision and everything we're going, then we're gonna fail. The role of the leader is to create an environment in which great ideas happen, in which 125 firefighters, we have an environment that great ideas. So we don't want to look at just the fire chief to come up with all the ideas. We don't want him to do all or her to do all the recruitment or to do all the development. It's a team effort. And as a leader, you don't inspire a team by showing them how smart you are. You inspire them by showing them how amazing they are. And that's one of the things that I would want to focus on. And I'm excited for that recruitment, that development of our staff, the program that I would put together to do it. And then having a diverse staff is also very important.
Okay, thank you. Just a matter of a time check. We're just about at our halfway point, but we're only on question 8 of 18 plus a 3-minute close. So the next question comes from our labor group. Have you been part of any capital improvement projects? And if so, in what capacity?
Capital improvement. Whew. We have time crunch and I got a big answer. So I'll try to make it as short as I can. When I first became chief, my first year, I will never forget it. And this is I went in with our fleet plan. And unfortunately, the fleet plan that we had put together had, again, no facts, no data. I became chief in 2008, right when the downturn hit. So you can imagine that very first meeting, everybody in all the other departments are going, we need to cut millions of dollars. And they were looking right at our engines and our trucks, $500,000 for an engine, $1.5 million for a ladder truck. Well, there's where we save our money. And I remember the deputy chief of logistics and I going into that meeting, and we couldn't defend ourselves other than we need it cuz. So together we walked out and we said, we need to make a change. And together as a command staff, we put together a fleet plan that flattened out the bumps. We took, when we purchase a vehicle every year, how it depreciates, right? Every year, the cost of maintenance, it gets more, and the lines cross at some point. At some point, keeping an engine costs more than it does to actually buying a new engine. We came in with that new plan the next year, showing that an engine, this is how much you get when you sell it, this is how much it costs per mile, and this is when the two lines cross. I'm proud to say that after that, when we proposed that, we never had a question about our fleet plan again. And the reason is it was around facts and data. I was proud because when other department heads would say, hey, let's save some money and not buy an engine, I'd have other departments to go, no. If you do that, it kicks it down. You're going to have a bubble. It's going to cost us more. We need to focus on that. So that's part of our fleet plan. You asked about capital. Capital, we had a big problem in capital 12 years ago when I became fire chief. We had old infrastructure. So the first thing he did was we passed an ordinance for, oh my gosh, I forgot the name of it. It's development fees for fire. And so as development fees came, it went directly into fire for capital. So that was one of the first things that we did. After that, we did the exact same thing with our stations. We had we got some help, and we went through every single one of our stations, and we put a plan together for fixing it, from having diverse areas for people to be in, seismic problems. We had, you go on and on, all the problems, but we put together a plan. Then we said, this is expensive, right? This is going to be really expensive. What do we do? We went out to bond and to the community, and we got a bond passed, and it passed by 76% in Boise. My old mayor used to say, nobody passes 76%. Putin doesn't even get that high, and he cheats. And the reason it was so high is because the community trusted us, and it was about facts and data. It wasn't about emotion or we need it. We put together an entire facilities plan. Then not only for replacing it, putting sprinklers in, to making sure we had, diverse bathrooms and stuff. We also looked into the future. We got to put together a plan for paving parking lots, so that a brand new roof doesn't bust the budget, that we're replacing them on an annual cycle. So I'll stop there. One of the other things I'll quickly mention is that we also passed in our bond a new training facility. We built a state-of-the-art training facility. I'd love to send you a video of it. It's pretty amazing. A 5-story Class B tower, or a 2-story Class A tower, kind of like a fire station for the recruit academy, and then our training officers was part of that bond. And I'll stop there.
Okay, thank you. Question 9 comes from a community member. 2-part question. To what extent do you personally use social media, and how do you see such technology as a valuable form of communication to the Gig Harbor community?
So personally, social media, I have a Facebook page, I have an Instagram, and Twitter. Personally, I don't put a lot on there, maybe a little bit. Mostly I used to put department stuff, and now that I'm school board, I'll put some school board stuff on Facebook, a little bit of personal stuff. Twitter, I used Twitter when I was fire chief a lot because it was the quickest and easiest way to let media know what was going on. For an example, we had the Table Rock fire, a large fire here that almost got really close to my own house. As soon as I would tweet out, this is where I am, I'm at the incident command post, anybody that wants interviews, come here. I found that sometimes the media would never even call me or contact me, they just quote tweets. So Twitter and social media is very, very important as a department, as a fire chief. Having a communication director, using social media is very important. So to answer the question on personal, I don't use Twitter much as personally. Snapchat, it's just me and my kids. Instagram, a little bit more personal on Instagram if I go backpacking or something. And Facebook has been more work related, but it's very, very important as a department, as a fire chief, as Chief Doan. My Twitter handle is very important. And as fire chief, we created a communications plan that I know I don't have time to go into, but we can go into the entire communications plan that we put together for the community, for internal department, and for emergencies too.
Okay, question 10 comes from our commissioners. Please provide any examples of how you have been able to enhance service levels without added expense, or were successful in saving money without diminishing services.
Whew, adding services, not costing money. Services are 80% personnel, and so I'm trying to, I will say, so through some contract for services, we were able to do that. So we contracted with the airport, and when we first, the airport paid for a portion of it. Here's another thing that we did was we really dove into our contracts. So we had contracts with 3 fire districts, another city, the airport, Idaho Transportation Department, federal government. I could go on, but we weren't getting full cost accounting for what we were doing. I'm unsure how the number was came up with before I was chief. So what we did, Kim Brown, the deputy chief, did an amazing job. What we did is we took our entire department and per FTE, and we put in, from the chief to the deputy chiefs to public relations to our equipment to turnouts, training. We took everything, and then we broke out per person the cost. Then we went to the airport and we said, you've been getting a bargain for a long time. This is the actual cost of business that it costs for us to do it. Included is training, turnouts, and all those things. So we were able to increase, again, it's through facts and it's through data that the airport needed to pay more for our firefighters, and we were able to increase staffing. When I first became chief, we only had 3 firefighters at the airport per station, and we increased it to 5 in the first year. Another thing we did, like I said, was impact fees that we passed to help us, and then the bond. That's not operationally though, so that's not a great example. But we got to look at other types of revenue sources through our contracts. Are we getting full cost accounting is very important. So another thing that we did too was we were working with Ada County EMS to cross staff and to share resources in a rapid response vehicle to go on those type of calls that we're not transporting very much. Maybe not sending an engine and an ambulance, and we were sending a lot of resources to calls that we didn't need to, and we partnered with them to send a rapid response vehicle.
Okay, thank you. The next question comes from our labor group. How familiar are you with the IAFF Wellness Fitness Initiative, and what is your position in regards to adhering to that initiative?
Well, I was the state union president when the Wellness Fitness Initiative started. In fact, before that started, I was, I know I don't look like it now, but at one time I was on the Combat Challenge team, it was called, and it's called the David Dodson test. And that's where all of this actually started. And I was part of that. I went to the national finals as a Combat Challenge, and that's where it started. Then I was the IAFF state president when the Wellness Fitness started, and it was 10 cities and 10 unions with the IAFF and the IFC that was saying departments were using this sporting event, this test, as an incumbent test, as and as an entry level test. So they came up with a way to test that the Department of Justice was part of, and the IAFF and the IFC, and that's where the Wellness Fitness Initiative started. So I was a labor advocate. I was trying to pass it as a labor advocate with the chief, and we couldn't get it over the finish line. Then when I became chief, not only did we pass it, the Wellness Fitness Initiative, we had some struggles at first. The union didn't want it for a little bit, which is a whole nother story. But we did get it through. We actually partnered with a doctor, and we created the Emergency Responders Healthcare Clinic, which is a model in this nation. It's across the street from our department, and it's a doctor's office that has doctors, physical therapists, massage therapists, psychologists in there that help firefighters. So I'll pause there. I'm very, very familiar with it. I negotiated it as a union leader and as a fire chief. It's very important. I helped fund it as the fire chief, and we created the Emergency Responders Healthcare Clinic to support the Wellness Fitness Initiative.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Ency, your camera seems to be slipping, so I can't tell if you would have a follow-up question or not. You may want to reorient that. Thank you. The next question comes from a community member. In our community, county, and state, we have a wildland-urban interface problem. What will you do as fire chief to help prepare our community, our firefighters, and our county for a large-scale wildland-urban interface incident?
Well, we have a lot of similarities. Boise's exactly the same. We've had multiple wildland-urban interface fires here. We recently, we had the Table Rock fire that I talked about a little earlier. We had the Oregon Trails fire with 20 homes we lost and lost one life. The National Interagency Fire Center is based in Boise. And so our wildland urban interface program is modeled around the nation, actually. So I would take some of that experience and build on what's already been happening. I'm sure that Gig Harbor already has a great program. Another thing that we did was we passed the WUI code standards for building in the wildland urban interface. I'm sure that's already been done there, but Boise has led the way. In fact, many departments come to Boise and around the nation or around the world. We had a fire department from the Netherlands come to Boise to learn about our program and the things that we were doing. So we were a world leader and a national leader on wildland urban interface. again, I didn't do it. It was Deputy Chief Gervais and Division Chief. We hired, I brought in a Wildland Urban Interface Division Chief. We hired him from West Metro, Colorado, to handle all of our deployments, to make sure that our training, to partner with the NWCG training, Bureau of Land Management, whenever they were called out, they actually had us cover their yard for them here in Boise. So we were well respected, and our firefighters went all over the nation deploying on fires. So Wildland Urban Interface, again, I don't want to take credit for it. I didn't do it. The deputy chiefs and the division chiefs did the programs, but I saw the value in it, the importance in it, and led the way.
Okay, question 13 comes from our commissioners. How do you empower management staff to make decisions and to be accountable for those decisions?
So we kind of covered it a little bit, but how would I empower them is first empower them. I'm the opposite of a micromanager. I believe you surround yourself with great people. You know, you support them, you give them the tools that they need to do their job, and then you let them run. And together as a team, we would do what I talked about as a team: create great trust, create a healthy conflict within our team, commitment, accountability, and you know, the greatest accountability actually comes from our peers, if you think about it. So I would want to create an environment where they hold each other accountable. So if we're in a meeting, we would have we'd create a great leadership team. We'd create some clarity around where we're headed, where we're going, who's doing what as a team. We would give in our meetings updates. And if another one of the chiefs has not done their job, if I've created the right environment, one of their peers will look across at them and say, "Hey, you were supposed to have that done, and you didn't get it done." Because I think when we create a great team and we have that accountability, and that peer accountability is way, way stronger, because they don't want to let their team down. They don't want to let their peers down. And that's one of the things that I would do. So just like I would ask for expectations from the commissioners, I would give expectations of the people who work for me. I don't like a lot of rules. We're going to have policies and procedures and contract, and that's all great, and we need that. But at the end of the day, my one rule is if you think of it and it helps somebody and it's not illegal or immoral, then do it. We need to help others. We need to partner with others. So I would set expectations. I would hold each other accountable. I would look for peer accountability. There'd be peer accountability because we would be a great team. And that's how I would do it. I'm not a micromanager. I believe we got great chiefs that are adults that just need to be supported, and they'll do a great job. And that's how I would lead.
Okay, thank you. Question 14 from our labor group. What research have you done and/or actions have you taken to identify and reduce firefighter exposure to carcinogen?
So I think not that we need to look at it even more holistic. So I'll answer the question about that. But I think we need to think of firefighter safety way bigger than just carcinogens. First, there is the mental health. And gosh, I'm sorry, I'm already getting emotional. I don't know if you know, but we had a line of duty death in Boise. And one of my friends, he actually worked for me. And as fire chief, he hung himself from the back of our ladder truck. And then not long later, another close friend took his own life, firefighter. I'm very passionate about that. I have worked on legislation at the State House, and we actually passed it last year to protect police officers and firefighters from PTSI. So I think we need to holistically look at it, not only from the PTSI, physical, you know, we talked about the wellness fitness initiative, very important. So we don't need to go into that. Then there's carcinogens and smoke, and we need to focus on that. So I'll answer your question a little bit more on what we've done. I was it's been a long time ago, and I know it sounds crazy, but we're just moving turnouts out of the station. We put Niedermans in the station. We bought 2 sets of turnouts for every firefighter. We did a hood exchange program. We do mass decon on the fires. We started a clean cab concept in Boise where we get all the carcinogens out of the cab. All those are very, very important. I completely support the IAFF and the IAFC's programs that they put in place to do all that. So to keep it short and sweet, it's more than carcinogens. It's a holistic approach to firefighter health and safety, and their health and safety on the fire ground is a whole nother thing. And that's why training isn't so important, getting a training facility and so they can regularly do it. And you don't have to wait on acquired structures. So it's way bigger than carcinogens firefighter safety is. And those are some of the things that I've done.
Okay, our last time check here. We're coming up on 28 minutes. You're doing fine on time. You have 4 more questions. This question comes from a community member. And we've touched on this briefly, but maybe you can expand in a different direction. What measures should a fire department take in order to ensure an equitable, safe, and inclusive work environment for all of its members?
I don't know if I can expand on that much more. I think I spent a lot of time on it and probably hit it pretty good. I don't want to repeat myself or take time. I think, like I had said earlier, that we do need to hire a diverse workforce, and we focus on that. We need to have inclusive. But again, I think the next step is looking at our medicine, and not only that, but our calls and what we're going on, who we're going on, and how are we delivering our services. And is there an impact, and do we have a bias within how we're, especially in medicine, we're delivering services? And I think that's the next step that we need to take in the fire service, mostly in medicine, but we could do it in our other services too. So sorry to pun on that one. I don't know what else to add.
I understand. Okay, question 16 comes from our commissioners. Tell us about your involvement in the communities in which you have worked and how long you have integrated, or how you have integrated the fire service into community relations. How accessible would you be to the everyday citizen?
Oh, I think I've hit on this, but I'll try again a little bit. I told you that I'm on the school board, chamber, American Red Cross board. I was the PFI president, Boise Young Professional, State Medal of Honor Commission, appointed by the governor, Rotary. So I believe it's important. You'll see sometimes fire chiefs dress like this. I think it's important. I'm a firefighter, and I've always been a firefighter, and I continue will be a firefighter. I will wear my uniform every day. I'm not a politician. I'm a firefighter, and I'm a fire chief, and I will present myself at those events. My wife and I were very active in our community, and I would go and speak and at events. Telling them about our service, telling them about the fire department, telling them about how we do our service, and promoting the fire department as a whole and as a district. So that's what I would continue to do. My wife and I are excited about that. We're excited about Gig Harbor finding a place that we can invest in the community, be in the heart of the community, be part of the community. Like I said, I would join the Rotary and get active in the chamber and do all those same things and represent the fire department. And that's the job of the fire chief is to do that, and also work with the city and the police chief together. The police chief and I here in Boise did a lot of events together. We would go to the veterans home annually, and together we would go around and we would talk to veterans. We did something called the Boise Bicycle Project, and we would help them get bikes donated for children that needed them. And I could go on and on about all the community events that I did and have done, and I would continue to do that in Gig Harbor and look forward to it.
Okay, question 17 from a community member. What is your plan over the next 5 years to develop the department, to help the department grow and adapt to the needs of its citizens?
It's a little hard to answer a 5-year question coming from Boise and being an outsider. I think it's spending some time getting to know the culture. I don't want to come. Gig Harbor has its own culture. Gig Harbor has its own way. Gig Harbor has its own way of doing things. And I don't want to come in and just say, I worked in Boise, so let's do it Boise's way. We need to, I do have experience. I do have 12 years of experience, from personnel to people to facilities to the training. I could go on, and I will bring that experience. But I don't want to come in and say, this is the way we should do things. There's a lot of listening. There's a lot of culture. There's a lot of, I need to find out expectations from commissioners, but to know what it would look like. But I will say this, looking at it from an outsider, that looks like the future. That looks like some of the things that need to be addressed. So that's what I would focus on. I'd focus on a truck company, right? I know that right now we pay some automatic aid for a truck company. What do we need a truck company for? How's it going to be staffed? Is it financially feasible? I think focusing on a truck company in the next five years and addressing those rural areas from Fox Island to the rural areas, to the volunteers, to the resident program. I think it's very important. How are we going to serve those more rural parts of the district? I think needs to be addressed. I think outsider looking in, it may have some facilities. How are we going to plan for the future? How are we going to afford to update those? Or is there a bond in the future to pay for that? And maybe is it impact fees? How is that going to be done? I did notice when the chief and I were talking, he said that there was a bubble coming up on the fire engines. That seems like a lot of engines being bought at once. How can we smooth that out to help with the budget? I would say that those things are important. Mentoring and team building of the team is very important. Operational staffing. I know that 2 engines just went to 3-person, and I know that they're already going to 3-person this year for the other 3. That would be, when I first saw that, I was a little worried that we had 2-person engine companies, but there's already a plan for the future. Facility staff development, positive relationships with others, communication with the community. So that's my 5-year plan. Truck companies, addressing rural areas, facilities, maybe a training facility, frontline engines. What's the plan? Mentoring and team building. How are we going to operationally prepare for the future, and maybe in the rural areas, and community relations? It would be my 5-year plan before talking to the commissioners and finding out where they want to head to.
Okay, and our final structured question comes from our commissioners. Share with us your experience in building and maintaining the public confidence in the fire department.
Well, it's hard to add on to this one again too. It's being community involved. It's building that trust. So maybe if I approach it this way, let me tell you where the fire department was 12 years ago and where we left it. When I first became fire chief, there was not a lot of great relationships with sheriff, with the dispatch, with the emergency manager, with Ada County EMS, with neighboring departments, and I'm proud and happy to say that that completely changed. So one of the things going into EMS, we brought in paramedics and paramedic transport. We had, when I first became there was not a good relationship with Ada County EMS. So much so that it was really bad, fighting, not literally, but canceling each other on calls. It was not good. I called all the fire chiefs and the Ada County EMS director into one room, and we created the Access Emergency Ada City County Emergency Services System. We went to one doctor. We went to one standard written order. We created a relationship to where actually the Ada County EMS director, Sean Rain, ended up working as the EMS chief in Boise. And I'm really proud that we did that. We went from bad relationships to great relationships and partnering. We went from borders with other fire agencies to automatic vehicle locators and sending the closest engine. It doesn't matter what color your engine is. It doesn't matter the logo on the side. We're going to get you the best service through automatic vehicle locators together. We went together and countywide went to ESO, and one report countywide, one incident countywide with one report. And we worked with the sheriff to do that. I've already forgot. Oh, it was about public confidence. You know, it's being in the public. It's being creating great relationships with all of our neighbors. It's about all those things that I talked about, being in our community, talking, speaking, representing our department, representing Gig Harbor at those events. And that's what I would do to create public confidence.
Okay, thank you. Those are our structured questions. At this point, I'll turn my attention to the panel. Are there any follow-up questions from the panel members? Okay, seeing none. Mr. Doan, do you have any questions of the panel?
Well, I have a few thousand, but I know that now isn't the best time to ask them. I hope we have some opportunities. But you know, I kind of asked some at the beginning that I'd want to know is how I would be evaluated, how I'd be measured, what are the performance indicators. I guess one of my questions is, you know, what's the biggest challenge for the fire chief in the future?
Chair Wilsey, I'll direct that to you, or if you want to assign that to another panelist.
No, I can answer that here for us. And I think you kind of nailed it. I think you've done your homework, Dennis, and the fact that, you know, facilities, right? Facilities plan, fleet plan, staffing, right? We've already started to tackle some of the staffing issues, but those are going to be a constant battle for us. And then also the ladder company and the training facility. I think that I've kind of hit most of what all the commissioners, you know, passions are and where we need to go. And those are the challenges that we're going to be facing. So just a quick reflex answer to that one. And luckily you brought it up and you've done your research to find those out, but those are exactly what we're going to be facing. Do any of the other commissioners have anything to add to that? All right, seeing none.
I guess the only other thing, you know, maybe some help on just, I don't want to spend time in going through all the expectations, but what, how does, what's your expectation of the fire chief and board relationship and how that works, and how we would work together on expectations and where we're headed?
Well, I'll simply say that you've got some big shoes to fill. Chief Burgess did an excellent job, not only with communicating with us, but communicating with his staff and communicating with the public and being part of all the public, you know, venues that even you mentioned, right? I know I've seen the chief at the chamber. He does an excellent job there with speaking and interacting with the public. He's also involved in many of the other clubs that you talked about, and does have a good relationship with the city, you know, as best as he can at this time, right? And our expectation would be that continues. We do have an open and honest and very transparent feeling here amongst the board and with our, not only the fire chief, but the command staff. We have no issue with any one of the board members talking with any of the command staff or the fire chief and relaying any issues, talking about communication or listening expectations with, right? The other thing that the chief did very well, and our expectation would be, is budget, right? Sometimes you can want a lot of things, and us commissioners will want a lot of things, but at the end of the day, there's one thing that we are ruled by, and that's with the budget that we have. Now, that does tend to go up and down depending on, you know, what the values do around here, but fortunately for us, it's been fairly stable lately. And I would look forward to seeing what, and there's some other revenue streams as far as GEMT that we've taken advantage of and have kind of gone beyond our expectations, honestly. And we need to probably develop a plan on what we're going to use those funds for, and have that clear expectation to you as far as what that can be used for and what we will use it for. So just a quick reflex answer there. I know, do any of the other commissioners have anything to add as far as expectations of the fire chief moving forward?
Alex, I just have a question to ask of Mr. Doan, if that's okay.
Absolutely.
How, we're a fire district, right? So we're a separate organization. Chief Busey graciously, agreed to be a part of this, but, the city of Gig Harbor is completely separate. You're coming from a city organization where the fire department is one of many organizations within the city, and you're sort of constantly having this battle, might not be the right word, but, there's kind of different parties that are all looking for a piece of the pie, so to speak. How do you think your transition from that to an entity where it's really transparent, we have property taxes, we have a certain amount of revenue, and that's that. How do you view that transition occurring for you, moving from that city budgeting process to what Alex has described, what we do?
Well, thanks for asking that. Although I was a city fire chief, remember, we contracted with 3 fire districts. So there was the North Ada County Fire Protection District, Whitney Fire Protection District, Sunset Fire Protection District, and Garden City is part of one of those districts. So I attended every single one of those fire district meetings, and I was their fire chief. They had their standalone budget. And in essence, I was the fire chief for the North Ada County Fire and Rescue Fire District with its own commissioners and its own budget, and we would put that together. Same with the Whitney Fire Protection District. So, and then I would go to, even though Garden City was part of the North Ada County Fire District, Boise kind of surrounds Garden City. I would, just like in Gig Harbor, I would meet with the Mayor Evans, and I, and the police chief that worked for the city police, partnered, just like I would want to do there. So I have experiences, even though I was a city chief, and that's where most of our budget came. We had another, let's see, $7, $8 million budget from fire districts too, and I was their fire chief. So I do have experience with that. And then on the flip side, I kind of talked about the school board. I bet, been on the board where we have a budget that's only school district budget. And so I understand the dynamics of that. And thanks for letting me clarify that I'm a city fire chief, and that's where I came, but I was also a fire chief for 3 other fire districts too.
Thank you.
And I thought I went to a lot of meetings. So if there's no other questions from the panel, I'll turn it back to Mr. Doan here and give you 3 minutes, up to 3 minutes, to give some closing remarks.
Whew, boy, we've talked about a lot, and yet I could spend hours talking about each one of these things. So I told you a little about me. We talked about Boise and the fire districts and the experience. So why Gig Harbor? Why do I want to come, and what am I excited about? I'm young. I have a lot of years left in me. I'm looking for a place that my wife and I can come and invest in and be part of for a long, long time, and move to and invest in that community. I have a lot of years left in me, but I also have a lot of experience with me. I think it's important that if I am lucky enough to come to Gig Harbor, that that I'm in it for the long haul, for as long as I can be. I'm not coming in just for a year or 2 or 5 or whatever it is. I'm moving my family there, and if this works for both of us, I'm moving them there, and I'm investing in the community, and I'm excited about that opportunity. I'm excited to, just we talked about a minute ago, how it's a fire district. Some people have said, well, you're going from Boise to a smaller department. Well, size doesn't always matter. In fact, a lot of times in Boise, it's a huge ship. And we would work with our partners next door and a smaller fire department. We'd come up with, let's do this thing. And they'd say, okay, let's start the training next week. And I'd say, no, let's start it next year, right? Because we'd have an entire training calendar and it'd be done a year in advance. And if you want to do something new, the processes and the difficulty to steering that huge ship was very hard sometimes. And I'm looking forward to being able to come to a fire district that's a little more of a speedboat. It seems to me that Gig Harbor is, sorry to use this analogy, but a rocket ship that is ready to take off. It has so much potential and so much excitement, and the things that we can do together, the experience that I have of 12 years and the things I've been through and the things that are facing you, truck company, rural areas, facilities, I have that experience and I'm looking forward to it. So I want you to know that. I want you to know I'm excited. I want you to know this is where I want to be. I want to be there for the long haul. I want to bring my experience. I have a lot of experience and a lot of years left to do that. And I want to thank you. I want just for allowing me to be here, to allow me to be in front of you, to allow me to talk to you. And we've just scratched the surface, and I got 1,000 questions, but that's the process, and I appreciate it, and I appreciate this time that you've given me.
Thank you, Mr. Doan. It's been good to get to know you and spend some time with you as well. So at this point, I will turn it back to Chair Wilsey for any formalities at this point.
All right, so with the conclusion of that interview, I just wanted to let everybody know in the public that we will be going into recess at this time. This link will be shut down due to some time restraints. Please log back in to the same link at 10:55. That's when we plan to start our next interview. So use the same link, come back, and we will have our next candidate at 10:55. We'll be in recess until then. So thank you.